WNYC Studios is supported by Wise. Wise, the smart way to manage the currencies you need around the world. With the Wise account, you can send, spend, and receive in up to 40 currencies with only a few simple taps. Be smart. Get Wise. Download the Wise app today. Terms and conditions apply. WNYC Studios is supported by Odoo. When you buy business software from lots of vendors, the costs add up and it gets complicated and confusing. Odoo solves this. It's a single company that sells a suite of enterprise apps that handles everything from accounting to inventory to sales. Odoo is all connected on a single platform in a simple and affordable way. You can save money without missing out on the features you need. Check out Odoo at odoo.com. That's odoo.com.
It's the Brian Lehrer Show on WNYC. Good morning again, everyone. Well, each day during the membership drive, we're having a 10-question quiz in the middle to break things up with a little fun between the serious subjects that we talk about and the fundraising. For these last 3 days of the drive, today through Wednesday, we have the privilege of the historian Kenneth C. Davis having written up some 10-question quizzes for us. Today's is on the Declaration of Independence. So who thinks you know something about the Declaration of Independence? Enough to get 2 questions in a row right. If you do, you can choose between the Russ and Daughters babka that we're giving away as a thank you gift in the membership drive until noon today, or a Brian Lehrer Show baseball cap. Who wants to play? 212-433. WNYC, our lines are full now. Oh, well, there's one open, actually, so you can sneak in there at 212-433-9692, or when people finish up. Kenneth C. Davis is the author of Don't Know Much About History, his classic, and the Don't Know Much About series of books about all kinds of things, as well as his book celebrating short fiction and short nonfiction. And Ken, thanks for doing this for us. Welcome back to WNYC.
It is always a pleasure, Brian, and a privilege. Thank you for having me.
Let's just jump right in with Sharon in Manhattan. Sharon, you ready to play?
I am. Thank you.
And I'll ask the first question. What specifically does the 4th of July, obviously we're coming up to 250th birthday of the country on July 4th, what specifically does July 4th celebrate?
Does July 4th... Say that again, please.
Something happened on July 4th, 1776.
The Declaration of Independence was published.
That's right. That was just to see if you're awake. Question 2. Ken, you want to ask this one?
Okay. What did the Declaration of Independence actually declare? Since it's a declaration.
The Declaration of Separation from England?
That's close enough that we'll call it. Yes, absolutely. Specifically,
would you like a loaf of Russ and Daughters babka or Brian Lehrer Show baseball cap?
Brian Lehrer Show baseball cap. Thank you.
1 cap heading to Sharon. We'll take your address off the air. Just in brief, Ken, what led up to that? I mean, they could have, they could have stayed with England but fought for their rights.
And a lot of people in the 13 colonies thought they should. John Adams, who was, of course, one of the principal architects of independence and was on the committee with Thomas Jefferson, wrote the Declaration of Independence, estimated at that time about a third of the country was in favor of independence, a third of the country favored staying allegiant to the crown, and a third in the middle, probably the biggest third in the middle, didn't care one way or another. We don't know that for sure. There was no polling, actually, but that's and many members of the Continental Congress that was debating this question wanted to retain their ties to Great Britain, to the United Kingdom. There were true loyalists among them. When we think about, for instance, Benjamin Franklin's own son, William was actually the governor of New Jersey and left the United States at a certain point to go back to England after independence. So it was a a bitterly divisive time in this country, and those who were loyal to the king were known as Tories, and many of them had to leave the country eventually and at complete loss of their properties.
All right. Well, thanks for writing the first two questions just to see if people are awake. What did the Declaration of Independence declare? Independence? Yeah, she got that one right. Let's go next to Kevin in Northport in striking Long Island Railroad territory. Hi, Kevin. Ready to play?
Hi. I'm ready. Thanks, Brian.
Okay. Question 3. Maybe a little harder. What are the unalienable rights listed in the Declaration?
Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness.
That is
Ken,
correct.
with all the possible rights that they could have listed, all the possible virtues of self-government, etc., why those 3? Seriously.
Well, it's a good question. And of course, Thomas Jefferson did not write this full-blown from his own creative genius mind. He borrowed a lot of existing literature, thoughts, philosophy from the Enlightenment period. And the phrase that he was referring to here was actually previously life, liberty, and the pursuit of property. Benjamin Franklin, I believe it was, who suggested he strike property and substitute happiness, and we're glad that he did. Of course, at the time, the word property conveyed a very different meaning. We weren't just talking about having a nice piece of property on Long Island. We were talking about human property for the most part. So it was a key distinction in the many changes that were made to Jefferson's draft, and we'll get back to that.
And of course, pursuit of happiness. I mean, this isn't a law, so there's no law that says, the government is going to enforce everybody's right of happiness. It was a Declaration of Independence from Great Britain. But pursuit of happiness, it's so broad that people could use it to support all kinds of programs today. I don't actually hear it invoked very much.
No, it's an interesting point, and of course it doesn't guarantee happiness. It only guarantees that you have a right to pursue happiness. And what did Jefferson actually mean by happiness? Certainly not the giddy feeling that we might think of when we wish somebody happy birthday, but a more essential human notion that people are entitled to pursue those things that allow them to live a full and rich life. And to Jefferson, that meant being educated, at least for some people. And we have to remember, of course, that the Declaration of Independence was written at a time when all men are created equal, and that certainly was not a universal declaration.
All right, back to Kevin in Northport, who got one question right. Another one for the hat or the babka. Question 4, what controversial idea did the Congress delete from Jefferson's original declaration? And I'll give you one little hint. Ken did refer to it in his answer a minute ago.
Oh, gosh. Well, I'm going to go back to property.
You are exactly right.
All right.
That's right. A condemnation of slavery. Deleted. That was in there, Ken?
Yes, it was a condemnation of slavery, this trade. And Jefferson actually, in this list of charges that he made, 27 charges in the final declaration against the King of England, was one that the king was responsible for what Jefferson called the execrable commerce. And you can look that up in your dictionary. And, of course, this is the great irony that Jefferson, an enslaver himself, of course, was writing these words. And it speaks to the great contradiction that we always must come back to when we talk about these men. So this reference to the slave trade was deleted by the Congress. Jefferson later wrote that it was in deference to those Southern men who owned slaves, including himself, as well as those Northerners who were profiting a great deal. And we'll probably come back to this issue in a little bit. But I think this Jefferson's draft, he wrote a handwritten draft after the convention was over because he wanted to retain what he had originally written. The New York Public Library has a copy of it. I've seen it. It's a thrilling thing to go and see it. I think they'll be showing it as part of the special 250th anniversary of the nation in their treasures of the New York Public Library collection.
Kevin, would you like the Brian Lehrer Show baseball cap or a loaf of Russ and Daughter's chocolate babka?
I'll go with the hat.
One hat coming to Northport. We won't send it via Long Island Railroad. We'll send it by some other delivery service so it actually can get there. Kevin, hang on. We'll take your address off the air. All right, here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a break because this is a special version of the 10-question quiz with Ken here to give us all this interesting history relevant to the Declaration of Independence. So we're going to take a break and we're going to continue with the remaining questions in the 10-question quiz. Hang on, folks, if you want to play. As we're stretching this one out today, 212-433-WNYC if you want to get in on it. Our 10-question quiz today on the Declaration of Independence with historian Kenneth C. Davis. We'll continue after this. Brian Lehrer on WNYC, and as we said earlier, we're doing a 10-question quiz every day during the membership drive to break up the fundraising and the serious stuff that, of course, we do on this show with a little bit of fun and to give away some prizes today. Get 2 in a row right on this Declaration of Independence quiz that the historian Kenneth C. Davis has cooked up for us. And you can choose between a loaf of that Russ and Daughter's chocolate babka and a Brian Lehrer Show baseball cap. 212-433-WNYC. If you want to play, 212-433-9692. And Ernie in Montrose, New York, has been waiting for a while. Ernie, you're on WNYC. Ready to play?
Thank you, Brian. I hope so.
Okay, question 5 in the 10-question quiz. This is another one now that we're, relaunching in the second half of this, just to see if you're awake. Who was the main author of the Declaration of Independence?
Well, Thomas Jefferson.
That much is correct. Ken, you want to ask him question 6 for
we'll go on
the hat or the babka?
Of course, Jefferson was the principal author. He was part of a committee of 5. John Adams and Benjamin Franklin were also on that committee and contributed significantly to the final product. Number 6 is, within 10, how many people signed the Declaration of Independence? And I should also mention here, Brian, many people think that the Declaration was signed on July 4th. It was not. It was adopted on July 4th. The signature that we're all familiar with, John Hancock, that didn't come until August. A little 4th of July trivia.
All right,
So,
within 10, Ernie, how many people signed the Declaration of Independence? Take your best guess. But you have to do it now.
tick, tick,
Is
tick.
Ernie still there? Did Ernie drop off? I guess so. So let's try Sarah in Manhattan. Sarah, you there? You ready to play?
I am, crossing my fingers.
Did you hear that question? Within 10, how many people signed the Declaration of Independence?
26.
Ooh, sorry, that's not right. It was 56. We're going to go next to Arjun in Chappaqua. Arjun, ready to play?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Ken, you want to hit
Okay.
Arjun with this one?
We're looking for a percentage here. Within 5 percentage points, what percentage
Sure.
of the signers were white men? I think we gave this one away earlier, but we'll see if you were listening.
If people were paying very close attention, they might know it. Within 5 percentage points, what percentage of the signers were white men? You have a guess, Arjun?
Say 90, maybe?
Go a little bit higher.
95?
We're going to give it to you. That is within 5 percentage
95 points gets you to the. Of course, it was 100%. All 56
Okay, sure.
signers of the Declaration of Independence were white men. In fact, they were all white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, with one exception. John Carroll of Maryland was the only Roman Catholic signer. There was tremendous antipathy towards Roman Catholics in colonial and early America that continued for centuries, of course.
And you had another stat in your answer to this.
Yes.
They weren't only all white men. 41 out of the 56 were
enslavers or involved in the slave trade in some way. So that's a pretty high percentage, of course. And as I mentioned, Jefferson himself was an enslaver. But most of the men, by far, who signed the Declaration of Independence eventually were enslavers. And this speaks to the great contradiction in American history, that a nation so-called conceived in liberty was also born in shackles. And in fact, I wrote a book called In the Shadow of Liberty that really talks about the role of slavery, especially in the early republic and in the lives of the first 5 of the first 7 presidents who were slaveholders.
Did the women in any of these men's lives have an informal input, even though 100% of the signers were men?
Well, absolutely. The one that comes to mind immediately was Abigail Adams, who had this wonderful correspondence back and forth with her husband, John. She was still up in Boston. He was, of course, in Philadelphia. And she wrote very famously to him, it's been quoted many times, remember the ladies when you are putting together this new form of government, because if you don't, we'll form our own revolution. Adams responded, please don't worry, we will remember to keep our masculine proprieties. So that was the end of the discussion of women in the Declaration at that point. I should also mention, also in the realm of trivia, John Adams also wrote to Abigail that he thought we would celebrate July 2nd. That was the date on which Congress actually voted in favor of a resolution of independence, and he was sure this would be the day that would be celebrated with parades and church bells ringing and illuminations, by which he meant fireworks. He was just off by 2 days, of course. It's the 4th and the adoption of the Declaration that becomes seen as the nation's birthday.
Do you know what specifically Abigail Adams might have had in mind when she said, what were the words? Was it remember the
ladies? And she said,
so were there certain issues, like what we would call today women's issues, that she had in mind?
Well, I think the most basic was just representation, that women should have a voice in this new government that was being formed. And of course, it was going to be formed as a government of the people. And Abigail Adams certainly thought that women were people.
Arjun in Chappaqua is still with us. You got one right, and so one more, and you can choose between a Russ and Daughters chocolate popcorn and a Brian Lehrer Show baseball cap. Question 8, this might be a little harder. Can you cite the opening words of the Declaration of Independence?
When in the course of human events.
That is correct.
Spot on.
Ken, keep going on that a little bit. When in the course of human events
it becomes necessary for one nation to declare. I could keep going, but we'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Who wrote those words? When in the course of human events makes it sound global, not just about here we are with our particular interests to free ourselves of England.
And certainly it was Jefferson, of course, and I can pull it up because we should give credit where credit's due to Jefferson, because these were words that did not just apply to the United States of America. These were words that really did inspire revolutionary movements around the globe, not only in Jefferson's time, but for centuries to come. I recall, for instance, that Ho Chi Minh, who was the leader of what was then the north part of French Indochina, went to Paris in 1919 to try and get independence for his country, Vietnam, from France, and he cited Jefferson when he went to Paris to speak about this. So it's been a powerful idea throughout human history in the last 250 years.
Arjun, you got 2 in a row right. Do you want the Russ and Daughters chocolate babka or a Brian Lara Show baseball cap?
I'll have the babka. No offense to the show. No offense to the show.
1 loaf of babka, no offense taken, heading to Westchester. Hang on. We will take your address off the air. And we have 2 questions left to go, so it's either going to be 1 contestant if she gets both of them right, or 2 if she doesn't. And she is Ellen in West Orange, who's next up. Hi, Ellen. Ready to play?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Question 9. Ken, you want to ask it?
I will. According to the Declaration, governments derive their just powers from who?
Just the states.
That is not
So
correct.
I guess that's not a who.
You'll get, now that you figured out that that's not a who, very good categorization. We'll give you a second guess, but it is a very
Okay,
specific word. Let's see if you can get it.
The executive branch.
Sorry, Ellen. Thanks for trying, Ken.
Jefferson's words are, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. Now, we kind of think of this as, no big deal, but this was a radical idea at the time, of course. This was Jefferson was writing in a time when most nations were ruled either by a monarch or certainly a religious figure. And the idea that democracy, that the people, a republic, had a voice was still fairly radical. And most republics over the course of history, and Jefferson and Madison again later understood this, most republics had, of course, failed. And so this was a daunting and daring idea in 1776.
All right. We have 1 question left in this 10-question quiz, question 10. And when we get to that point, the contestant only has to get the 1 question right in order to win the prize. So, Paul in Jersey City, you ready to play?
I'm ready to play.
And question 10 in this 10-question quiz is...
Where
was the...
You go ahead, Brian.
Okay, I'll do it. Where was the term United States of America first formally used? The term United States of America. Where, in what document, was it first formally used?
In the U.S. Constitution?
I'll give you a clue. I didn't hear that answer. I'll give you a clue. This has been a 10-question quiz about the Declaration of Independence.
Oh, in the Declaration of Independence.
Ta-da! I think I was in the right key there. Paul, hang on. Would you like a Brian Lara Show baseball cap or a loaf of Russ and Daughters chocolate babka?
I'll take the cap because I'm on a diet.
All right. Good choice. The baseball cap heading to Jersey City. So Ken, where did it come from, the United States of America?
It was Jefferson's phrase he used there. Perhaps other people had said such a thing, but Jefferson says that these United States should be independent. So when it's formally composed on that document that we all know, it said a Declaration of the United States of America. So it's an important idea. I just want to add here, Brian, apropos to the moment, since we're talking about Jefferson, that Jefferson once wrote, I believe it was in 1787, he was in Paris at the time, that if he had to choose between the press and the government, he would always choose the press over the government. I'm sort of paraphrasing him and not doing justice to Jefferson's words, but he certainly thought, and he was a man of many contradictions, of course, that a free press was integral and that people must have the knowledge and they could only be informed if they could read, first of all, and if they had access to a free press. So he was a big proponent of that. And I must also add that during all of this, and Bridget has just walked in, I feel like I've kind of been sitting in an episode of Seinfeld with all this discussion of babka, but that's
right,
for another day.
Thomas Jefferson was a promoter of the free press even before Bridget Bergen came upon the scene and started reporting on not just politics but democracy, as she does. But give me one more thought on the United States of America. With what we've been discussing in this history quiz about how much slavery divided even the signers of the Declaration of Independence, why did they decide to form one country? We know ultimately there was a civil war. There was an attempt at secession by the slave states. Why didn't they just start that way at the beginning?
Well, I think they recognized from the very beginning that the only way they were going to be able to defeat the most powerful nation on earth, certainly in the European Western world, was by combining their strength. And of course, it was a long time from 1776 to 1787 before the Constitution was drafted and then ratified, that the country existed under the Articles of Confederation, which was essentially a mutual defense pact. It really provided for no strong central government. It was a weak government, and that's one of the reasons that the framers of the Constitution got together in 1787 to correct the flaws in what was a very poor system of governing a nation. I think that they realized at that time that united they could stand, and divided they would fall, and it's that simple.
Kenneth C. Davis, historian, will be back for the last 2 days of the membership drive as well, tomorrow and Wednesday, with 2 more 10-question history quizzes. Ken, the author of the Don't Know Much About series of books about history and other things, and his books on short fiction and short works of nonfiction. Talk to you tomorrow, Ken. This was great on the Declaration of Independence. Can't wait to see what you've got for Tuesday.
Looking forward to it, Brian. Thank you.
WNYC Studios is supported by AT&T. Summer. It's when we share more time, more memories, and more photos. And at AT&T, the iPhone 17 Pro is your summer essential. Its center stage front camera auto-adjusts the frame to fit everyone into group selfies. Right now at AT&T, you can get iPhone 17 Pro for $0 with eligible iPhone trade-in, any condition. Required trade-in of iPhone 15 Plus or higher, excluding iPhone 16e and 17e. Required eligible plan. Terms and restrictions apply. Subject to change. Visit att.com/iPhone or visit an AT&T store for details. WNYC's journalism and storytelling is heard by millions of passionate listeners. Sponsors of our programming gain our listeners' attention and their respect. Learn about how your organization can support WNYC and WNYC Studios at sponsorship.wnyc.org.